足谋一生之高维智慧. Deciphering the high-dimensional wisdom of Shangji Celestials, insufficient for planning a lifetime. Xiefeng, January 7, 2024. Translation edited by Qin Yu. In his article, Upgrade Thinking, A Clear Path Awaiting, Shangji Celestial made a thought-provoking statement. Not planning for matters after death is insufficient for planning a lifetime. Not planning for matters in a lifetime is insufficient for planning a single matter. Let's delve into and analyze this statement. If one doesn't think about what happens after death or overlooks it, then planning and striving throughout one's life may be entirely futile and contrary to life's meaning and value. Therefore, those who don't consider their fate and outcomes after death can't plan and organize their lives because those plans and arrangements are fleeting. Even if someone is wise, far-sighted, and dedicated, the results will still be in vain because ultimately, they'll have to reincarnate. Similarly, if someone doesn't consider major life events or what they're ultimately living for, but instead struggles and strives on specific matters, their talents, wisdom, and efforts will be wasted, losing the essence of their entire life. Further analysis reveals, what's the purpose of life? It's to live a happy, joyful, free, and fulfilling life. If this purpose isn't considered and life doesn't revolve around it, no matter how clever or hardworking someone is, life will be full of troubles, anxieties, pains, and sorrows. Even if someone becomes a high-ranking official, wealthy, or world-famous, life may still feel like a mess. For instance, after getting married and starting a family, no matter how you manage your family, no matter how many children you have, no matter how successful your children are, no matter how many marriage management plans, how to successfully manage family life, and spouse relationships lectures you have listened to, in the end, you will find that your life cannot be happy, joyful, free, and fulfilling life. This exemplifies not planning for a lifetime, not enough to plan for a single matter, not considering the entire life, but struggling and planning on specific matters will result in winning sesame seeds and smashing watermelons. Similarly, if someone doesn't consider matters after death, does not know where one comes from and where one is going, then the life one plans, thinks, and struggles for will be a failed one. This is not planning for matters after death, not enough to plan for a lifetime. Those who fail to plan for eternity are insufficient to plan for a moment. Those who don't plan for the whole aren't enough to plan for a domain. Countless failed lives illustrate the importance of planning for the future and the whole. The longer and more comprehensive the plan, the better. Those who consider things 1,000 years later must have clearer minds than those who consider things 100 years later. Similarly, those who consider things 100 years later must be more far-sighted than those who consider things 10 years later. Those who consider things 10 years later must be smarter than those who consider things a year later. Those who consider things a year later must be more successful than those who only consider things at hand. From this, we can gain an insight. If we ourselves find it difficult to plan for eternity, plan for the whole, plan for after death, plan for life, then we should follow those who can, and we surely won't go wrong. Conversely, if we listen to those who only focus on the present and follow those who are petty about the present, then life will inevitably become a tragedy or even a disaster. 人生旅途上最悲催的事是不了解自己. The most pitiful thing in life's journey is the lack of understanding of oneself. Xiefeng, February 19, 2024. Translation edited by Qin Yu. The most pitiful thing in life's journey is not that others don't understand you, but that you don't understand yourself, that you don't know yourself. If a person relies on the sympathy, pity, and comforting care of others to survive, then this person has little value left. They will be like a weak infant, unable to bear any responsibility or risk. Many people dream of getting rich overnight, becoming famous in one fell swoop, or becoming president. Those who harbor such thoughts are undoubtedly mentally ill. Even if they manage to achieve their wishes by chance, it would be a joke played by the devil, because what follows is either imprisonment, infamy, or being torn apart. Success and miracles are the result of hard work, not rewards for luck. To be born human, every lazy day, every day of indifference and idleness, is a trampling on life and a desecration and harm to life. Survival is a battle, a fight. If you think that life is peaceful and you can safely enjoy its beauty without your own efforts and dedication, then behind your beautiful life, someone must have sweated, shed tears, and shed blood to create it. They must have suffered torment and devastation for your happiness. Creating wealth for oneself through one's own diligence and hard work is the most just and moral way of life. Any method of obtaining wealth without labor, sweat, and effort is sinful and will be sent to the animal realm to repay debts. Those who commit heinous crimes will be sent to hell to suffer excruciating pain and torment. When you complain about others and society, when you hate others and society, remember, all misfortune comes from your own ignorance, from your ignorance of yourself and your stupidity. If you don't even know who you are, what you can and cannot do, how much water you, as a vessel, can hold, then the object of your complaints and anger is yourself. Only when one knows why one lives can one endure any kind of life. The more one wants to live a rich life, the more grievances and even injustices one must swallow. A person who cannot endure any grievances will ultimately fall into the vulgar sewer. Anyone who wants to live a wonderful and satisfying life must endure the tempering and even beating of life. They must be prepared to sweat, shed tears, and shed blood. They need to grit their teeth and persevere towards their ideal goals against the wind and sand. Doing whatever you want, choosing any job you prefer, following your heart's desires, this is a fantasy. Not only is it impossible on earth, but it is also impossible in heaven. Wherever you are, you must be restrained. If there were no restraints, the earth would have been destroyed long ago, and the universe would have exploded into pieces. Always walk the right path. Walking the right path is challenging, but it is the only way to ascend to the pinnacle of life and life. Don't be swayed by the actions of others. Even if 99 out of 100 people choose the wrong path, you must persist in walking the right path. Once you stray onto the wrong path, the gains might seem easy, but the price paid can be enormous, even irreparable. 痛苦和磨难不会使人的生命升华. Suffering and hardship do not elevate one's life. Xiefeng, March 3, 2024. Currently, there is a prevalent notion on the internet that anyone who brings pain to oneself is here to fulfill oneself, and anyone who comes into one's life is here to fulfill oneself. Is this notion correct? In the Kaijin Tan, there is a warning. When heaven wants to harm someone, it first makes them proud with minor blessings. When heaven wants to bless someone, it first warns them with minor calamities. The Tao Te Ching says, misfortune, that upon which happiness depends. Happiness, that underneath which misfortune lurks. From the perspective of Tai Chi thinking, fortune and misfortune are intertwined, pain and happiness coexist, and hardship and enjoyment go hand in hand. From the perspective of causality, enduring pain and hardship is the eradication of karma. From this, we understand that experiencing pain and hardship on life's journey has its positive side. As long as one recognizes this, one will not be defeated by pain and hardship because the overall energy of the universe balances out. Behind pain and hardship lies happiness and enjoyment. However, the notion that anyone who brings pain to oneself is here to fulfill oneself, and anyone who comes into one's life is here to fulfill oneself, is erroneous. This is because the opposite implication of this notion is anyone who brings happiness to oneself is here to harm oneself, and anyone who comes into one's life is here to deceive oneself. Ask yourself, is someone who brings you joy, happiness, freedom, and blessedness harming you? Is someone who leads you into heaven harming you? Please ask yourself, if a villain stabs your parents or children to death with a knife, causing you pain, can you say that the person causing you pain is here to fulfill you? If rulers oppress you, exploit you, suppress you, and make you suffer, can you say that they are here to fulfill you? If the notion that anyone who brings pain to oneself is here to fulfill oneself were valid, then untrustworthy people, thieves, robbers, bullies, thugs, tyrants, cruel officials, counterfeit goods, drugs, and so on would be here to fulfill you, right? Would gods and Buddhas come to save you and bring you peace and happiness just to harm you? Looking back at history, human history is a history of suffering, and the lives of the vast majority of people are mostly made up of pain. How many people have been fulfilled? If you spend your whole life in pain and hardship, do you think you can be fulfilled? The fact is, pain and hardship do not fulfill a person. Instead, they destroy a person. What truly fulfills a person is not pain and hardship, but happiness, joy, freedom, and blessedness. The meaning of fulfillment is to realize one's wishes. Can pain and hardship realize your wishes? Can someone who drives you out of your home, deprives you of your property, and leaves you with nowhere to go fulfill your wishes? Can someone who insults your mother or daughter and causes you pain fulfill your wishes? Can someone who deceives you into a hellish situation and causes you pain and suffering fulfill your wishes? Pain and hardship do not make people grateful. Instead, they make people angry and irrational. Pain and hardship may teach people lessons and make them wiser and more cautious, but they do not necessarily make people more charitable, compassionate, or generous. The more civilized and orderly a place is, the happier, freer, and more joyful it is, the more it can help people to become celestial beings, Buddhas, and to achieve their best wishes. Conversely, the more barbaric and backward a place is, the more it is filled with lies, deceit, deprivation, and cruelty, the more it tends to breed demons and monsters. Do you still believe in the notion that anyone who brings pain to oneself is here to fulfill oneself? 邯郸孩子悲剧不会在第二家园发生. The tragedy of the children in Handan will not occur in the second home. Xiefeng, March 23, 2024. Translation edited by Qin Yu. The tragic case of 3 middle school students from Handan, Hebei, committing murder and burying the body is extremely heartbreaking and regrettable. It ruined the lives of 4 young people and devastated 4 families. The rampant incidents of school bullying should alert the entire society, especially all parents, to be vigilant and reflective. How can we prevent such tragedies from happening again? The optimal solution is to guide the entire society towards the lifestyle of Xiefeng-style communism. Specifically, it means enabling as many people as possible to adopt the lifestyle of the second home created by Life Genuine. The second home's production and lifestyle model can be described as a paradise for the elderly and a heaven for children. This innovative model has been practiced for 16 years. In the second home, children are safe. There is no bullying, and the children's minds are pure. In the second home school, we not only teach children regular subjects, but also impart knowledge on how to be a good person and the knowledge of the greatest creator, which is essentially the knowledge of how to live in harmony with nature. Regarding how children live and are educated in the second home, we have a wealth of text, images, and videos online. I won't go into detail here. Due to the firewall in China, you may not be able to see them, but I can assure you that the way the second home educates and raises children is unparalleled anywhere in the world, and others cannot replicate it. Tragic events like the Handan case of 3 middle school students killing a classmate and burying the body will absolutely not happen. The second home's production and lifestyle model not only solves the problem of school bullying, but also perfectly addresses the issue of elderly care. Without exaggeration, 75% of life's troubles and pains will disappear, and everyone will be able to live their own life, living freely, romantically, happily, and blissfully. For young and middle-aged people, living in the second home is like living in paradise. May the majority of humanity be fortunate enough to find the second home, integrate into its lifestyle, and truly live the way humans are meant to live. 哈耶克对乌托邦的无知. Friedrich Hayek's Ignorance of Utopia. Xiefeng, May 18, 2024. Translation edited by Qin Yu. Friedrich Hayek is seen by some as the gravedigger of utopia. His primary stance on utopia is that any planned system attempting to realize utopia will trample on private property, disregard basic human nature, lead to resource scarcity, social chaos, and ultimately result in disorder and enslavement. The outcome is economic collapse, moral decay, the extinction of truth, and self-destruction. Therefore, utopia is an unrealistic fantasy that can never be realized in reality. Hayek's most destructive critique of utopia is that there are many ways to destroy the world, but the most deceptive is utopia. However, his most poignant assertion is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and what always turns the world into hell is precisely people's attempts to turn it into heaven. To be honest, I agree with many of Hayek's views. From a human perspective, I believe that many of Hayek's views on freedom, democracy, protection of private property rights, and market economy are correct. If people do not long for a heavenly kingdom, then following the path pointed out by Hayek would be a good strategy. However, Hayek's views and conclusions on utopia are completely wrong. He does not understand the true meaning of utopia. He simply seizes upon some phenomena that resemble utopia and hastily defines it, appearing both arbitrary and ignorant. Like many others, Hayek mistakenly equates Hitler's Nazi regime and the Soviet-planned economy with utopia, thereby rejecting utopia. This is akin to mistaking a pile of chicken bones for a phoenix, a moth for a butterfly, and a fly for a bee. Utopia is a pursuit and aspiration of people with a heavenly consciousness. Without a profound understanding of life and time-space, without knowledge of humanity's ultimate purpose, and without an understanding and longing for the heavenly kingdom, people will never grasp the connotation and extension of utopia. The reason Hayek is ignorant of utopia is that he is human. He is a materialist, a realist, and a rationalist, but he is certainly not a soul that transcends human nature and possesses the life of the heavenly kingdom. Planned economies have nothing to do with utopia. Governments have nothing to do with utopia. Property has nothing to do with utopia. Legal systems and management have nothing to do with utopia. The thousand-year world is a pure and genuine utopia that has existed for hundreds of thousands of years, still operating flawlessly and orderly. Saying that utopia disregards basic human nature is a complete inversion of truth and distortion of facts. Not to mention the thousand-year world, even the second home of the life of Chanuan, which is a utopia, is a place where human nature is truly expressed and fully blossomed. The notion that the road to hell is paved with good intentions is absurd. Without good intentions, how can there be a bright future? Does only having vile intentions lead to a beautiful future? What's the difference between a person and a pig in a sty? If the person has lost good intentions, if you stand in the gutter and refuse to look up at the stars, does it mean that all those who look up at the stars with good intentions are heading to hell, and only those who look down at the gutter can create a bright future for humanity? I never believe that depriving others of private property has any justice. On the contrary, private property should be sacredly protected. This way, people will have a sense of security, a sense of freedom, and enthusiasm and passion to invent and create, which will maximally stimulate the development of productivity. At the same time, I also believe that businessmen and commerce are the greatest philanthropists and mechanisms of charity for humanity. Relying on market mechanisms rather than government planning is more in line with human nature and economic laws. However, we should not limit our view to the narrow perspective of a well and think that the sky is only as wide as its opening. The happiness, joy, and freedom experienced by those who possess nothing but own everything are beyond the reach of billionaires. The wisdom, experiences, and the wonderful understanding of life and spiritual realm that selfless people have are beyond the reach of those who are selfish. Utopia is precisely composed of noble beings who possess nothing and yet own everything, who are unselfish and selfless. Those without accumulated blessings from past lives and a reverent respect for nature have no chance of living in a utopian world. When people pursue material wealth, power, status, and fame, they should not forget that there are always some individuals striving to reach the pinnacle of life and life. These individuals are humanity's hope and beacon. They are the ones who seek to create a utopia, whose hearts live in a utopian society, and they are the ones most likely to enter the heaven. 认为共产主义社会就是共妻是天大的误解. A huge misunderstanding to believe that a communist society means wife sharing. Xiefeng. October 13, 2011. Translation edited by Jiejing. Some people live with their heads down. When they look straight ahead, all they see is garbage. When they look up, they mostly see the underside of people. Those who claim that a communist society must be a wife-sharing society are people who live with their heads down. Is a communist society a wife-sharing society? Of course not. In a communist society, there is no concept of marriage or family. Without the institution of marriage and family, there are no husbands and wives, so how could there be wives to be shared? The notion that there will be wife sharing in a communist society is a huge misunderstanding. This is a misperception based on the current state of human society, which is structured around the institution of marriage and family. These people assume that in a communist society, everyone's spouses would have to be shared. They fail to realize that in a communist society, there is no institution of marriage or family, thus eliminating the basis and context for wife sharing. To truly understand a communist society, one must first familiarize oneself with the following authors and their works: Plato, The Republic; Thomas More, Utopia; Edward Bellamy, Looking Backward; Olaf Stapledon, Last and First Men; Francis Bacon, New Atlantis; Tommaso Campanella, The City of the Sun; William Morris, News from Nowhere; Samuel Butler, Erewhon; Aldous Huxley, Brave New World; George Orwell, 1984; B.F. Skinner, Walden 2; Herbert Marcuse, An Essay on Liberation; Henri de Saint-Simon, The New Christianity; Charles Fourier, The New Industrial World, The Theory of Universal Unity, The Passions of the Human Soul; Robert Owen, A New View of Society and Revolution in the Mind and Practice of the Human Race; Marxist Philosophy, Political Economy, and Scientific Socialism; Confucius' Description of the Great Unity in the Book of Rights; Kang Yue, The Book of Great Unity. Merely understanding the aforementioned authors and their works is far from sufficient to fully grasp the characteristics of a communist society. This is because all these authors conceptualized and pursued their ideal societies within the context of a human society structured around the institution of marriage and family. Although their ideas transcend reality, they still assume in their understanding that a communist society evolves from a society structured around marriage and family. Therefore, their descriptions of ideal realms are incomplete and fragmented. The term communism was preceded by the concept of utopia, which is considered an unattainable, idealistic society. The works of authors such as William Morris, Samuel Butler, and Aldous Huxley are essentially anti-utopian in nature. However, as Oscar Wilde, a proponent of the aesthetic movement and a renowned British writer, poet, playwright, and artist, once said, "A map of the world that does not include utopia is not worth even glancing at." He often quoted, "We are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars." Those who claim that the second home established by life-genuine advocates, wife sharing, are people living in the gutter. Years ago, some people claimed that the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese Workers'